Welcome to the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got Eric Nalene. It's another great edition of Inside the Program. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're bringing it throughout the offseason. And the offseason got busy this week, Eric. The Longhorns added Mark Orphey and Errin Joe, one to the assistant coaching staff, one to the scouting department. They're also obviously in search of a new running backs coach after Tashard Choice left. We'll go into what SEC scheduling in football may look like in the future, and we'll finish it up with a little bit of hoops, talking Rodney Terry's future at Texas. Let's start with the guys we know have made it to Texas. Rutgers cornerbacks coach Mark Orphey is going to be an addition to to Steve Sarkisian's staff, replacing the spot left vacant by Blake Gideon, who went to Georgia Tech. We're talking a lot about the Yellow Jackets, it seems like, but what kind of excites you, and what do you know about Mark Orphey?
Well, the first thing that excites me is he's going to coach cornerbacks, and Terry Joseph is going to go back to safeties, where we've heard that Joseph did a great job at corner. I mean, he's got a Thorpe Award winner under his belt now, but we've heard he's always been more comfortable with the safety position. This is going to allow Texas to bring in a corners coach, move Joseph to safety, and they're going to get a little bit younger at a position where it's ideal to be on the younger end of the spectrum. That's kind of a young man's game, especially on recruiting. You got to have a lot of energy out there, and credit to Terry Joseph. He's not the youngest guy in the world, but he did a really good job of recruiting that position. Leaves Orphey in a pretty good spot. Terry Joseph, of course, inherits a really loaded position. Talk about Terry Joseph had Kyle Hamilton at Notre Dame. Jonah Williams might be the closest thing we've seen to Kyle Hamilton as a prospect since Joseph had Hamilton. So I think this just makes the secondary I don't know if it's better, but there certainly isn't a downgrade as far as I can see. I think it was a smart move to move Joseph and bring in Orphey. Orphey, I've heard reported a lot of good things about him over at InsideTexas.com, and it's going to be a bit of a running theme today when we talk about these guys. You're looking for traits that are going to transfer when they move up in the level of competition, which he's going to be doing going from Rutgers to Texas. It's a lot easier to recruit at UT with that logo on your shirt than that Scarlet Knight or whatever it is. It's just, the doors are going to be open a lot more. Kids are going to be a lot more responsive to him. We've heard he's a very energetic guy, very relatable. This is a guy that graduated from North Shore High School, but has also coached at Montana State. You can't get two more disparate environments than that. And that's going to give him a life experience that I think helps him coach kids from different walks of life, different areas. And recruit well. He's going to relate well to parents and recruits alike. So I think it's a really good hire. Fans might just be, wait and see on him because it doesn't come with a bunch of name recognition. But a lot of name recognition guys, they burn out over time. You're not hearing about the same guys you heard about 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's a young man's game. Texas got younger, and I think it's going to be a really good hire for him.
I looked it up. Rutgers has put, I believe, 11 defensive backs into the NFL since Greg Schiano got to Piscataway. 2 of them have been put into the NFL by Orphey, and he could add 2 more in the coming draft. There was the 2 that got drafted are Christian Braswell by the Jaguars and Max Melton by the Cardinals, and Melton played in all 17 games. They could get Eric Rogers and Robert Longerbeam, 2 guys who had really quality years for the Scarlet Knights. Also picked. So it's not like it's somebody who's just pure up-and-comer and doesn't have much of a track record. He's got a track record of putting guys in the NFL as well. The other addition was Errin Joe, Georgia Tech's director of player personnel. Kind of has had an interesting all-over career. Played at Georgia Tech. Don't think he made it to the league. Taught and coached at his high school, then to Georgia Tech. FAU, one of the international or Atlantic universities, UConn, Nick Saban hired him, and now he's been at a role at Georgia Tech for these past few seasons. Someone On3 identified as a rising star in the scouting department, and someone that now joins a crew that's got Brandon Harris, John Michael Jones, Taylor Sarles, a lot of different well-known people in the scouting world. Now adds another well-known person in Errin Joe.
Well, I love that he's coming from Georgia. You lost the hammer. It's Tashard Choice out there, volume recruiter. Tashard Choice was a much better recruiter than I think fans even realized. They're known for the guys that he signed, but I don't think they know how much he was offering names to the scouting department, to his fellow coaches that he would see when he's traveling through all those talented high schools. Tashard Choice came from Georgia Tech. Aaron Joe's coming from Georgia Tech as well. They have to scout a lot deeper than a team like Georgia does. Georgia's going to get the pick of the litter. Georgia Tech has to scout a lot deeper and find some of those jewels. And a lot of those jewels end up being really damn good football players. So I like the addition. It keeps a presence going in a very important state. Georgia might be the second most important state to Texas recruiting right now. Maybe you can make a case for California or Florida or maybe Louisiana, but Georgia's right there. We ought to think about that a little deeper and maybe write up something on it. But I think you got to have a presence in the Southeast if you want to compete in the Southeast Conference.
You talk a lot about in recruiting Texas kids that profile to the school. When you're at Georgia Tech and you've got those types of academics to deal with, you have to look for a similar thing. So it's definitely someone who can probably very effectively find the right type of prospect. Of course, when you're at Texas, you're looking for guys who are usually, it's pretty obvious, but at the same time, you have to be able to identify some off-field traits, and he'll know what he's looking for in that department. Of course, former Georgia Tech coach, now former Texas coach, Tashard Choice, as we broke on Inside Texas on Thursday. He's heading to the NFL. Didn't really want to work for the Mr. Schottenheimer, but he wants to work for Dan Campbell. Now Texas is in search of a new running backs coach. This will be the third that Steve Sarkisian has to hire. What is Sark probably looking for in this role, and who are some people that make sense for this role as well?
Maybe we should start looking at somebody that was in at Alabama recently, because both Orphey and Errin Joe did time. I get that's probably a good way coaches would probably say they did time with Saban. And so, maybe they go back to that. But right now, I think Keenan Hall is the most likely of the names we've heard. We've offered a lot of names. Some of them are just speculation. Here's what you got to know. I've never heard of so many people putting their hat in the ring to be a coach at Texas. Whenever a job opens, everybody's lining up. The agents are lining them up. Maybe they're trying to get their guy a deal at their current school. Maybe they truly want the job. But there are guys coming out of the woodwork. I had somebody I hadn't talked to in 10 years ask me yesterday, what direction they were going to go, because he had some interest or a guy that had interest in it. So that everybody's just coming out of the woodwork. So we don't know what will come from that. It might be somebody that Sark didn't even have on his radar. But Keenan Hall at Baylor, it's kind of like Orphey in that he just put him in a Texas logo and it's going to be over with. He's a great recruiter. He's got good relationships with a lot of good players already. Javian Osborne has got a relationship there. Was that SMU? SMU has quietly put out a bunch of running backs. They had a guy this year that blew up, Ulysses Bennett, who I like coming out of high school, C.E. King. He did well at Ole Miss. So he had success at SMU. Now he's doing well at Baylor. He's kind of been described as a Tashard Choice 2.0. I think one thing they need to realize is that they need somebody energetic on that side of the ball. Choice just brought a lot of value in a lot of different ways. One of that is energy and practice. We're hearing good things about Keenan Hall, but Sark has ties to the NFL. He knows a lot of guys that he likes to pull guys out of the Southeast. Maybe he's looking for a guy that helps unlock that region even further. Maybe another guy that can help like Choice did. Choice brought his big board from Georgia Tech, and that's how he had success. It served him for 2 cycles. He got C.J. Baxter and Jerry Gibson. He doesn't get those guys without that time at Georgia Tech. So Sark might see value in bringing somebody from the Southeast as well.
Hall does have another kind of cool connection, South Oak Cliff. That always goes a long way. And when it comes to running backs, coach, recruiting is going to be very, very important. That was a big complaint about a new Penn State running backs coach, Stan Drayton. Great at recruiting his position, but there's so much more you can offer. He could have offered, and that Tashard Choice did offer as a running backs coach, as a recruiter for the program. I had a conversation with Northern Illinois head coach Thomas Hammock, and he said, look, you got to know your scheme too. You got to know how to get guys to run the football, pass protect, and operate, in conjunction with offensive line. So it's not just a pure recruiting role. There's a lot that goes into it, and Texas is definitely searching for the right fit. Before we keep on going, got to show some love to our sponsor, and that is Andre the Lawyer.
This video is brought to you by Andre the Lawyer. If you're injured, trust the team that secured millions for their clients and helped thousands of Texans with their injury case. Car wrecks, slip and falls, 18-wheeler accidents, on-the-job injuries, and wrongful deaths. Don't let insurance tell you what your claim is worth. Hire Andre the lawyer to fight for you. Principal office is in Dallas, but they serve Texans throughout the state. So don't wait and call Andre the lawyer today at 214-444-8808. That's 214-444-8808. The contact information is in the description.
One of the things that was a big issue when Texas joined the SEC was, with an a 16-team league, would they expand the schedule? In 2024, they kept it at 8 teams. In 2025, it's going to be 8 teams again, 8 games. But 2026 may be looking a little bit different.
Yeah, I think we're talking about the non-conference versus conference schedule. It's 8-4 right now. It's kind of a wonky schedule. A lot of teams get basically a bye week in November, maybe late October. But I think that's going to go to 9 games. We've been hearing that basically since Texas joined the SEC in 2021, that this was the eventual outcome. It hasn't been voted on yet, which is why we haven't broken the story. But I would expect by 2026 that goes to 9 games. It boosts revenue for all the top teams and makes it a little tougher for some of the other teams to have quality seasons, become bowl eligible even. But you got to remember that's the top teams in the conference are going to be the ones that drive the interest, drive the revenue. One thing that's also been said is that these teams are being encouraged to schedule tougher teams, tougher competition, with the idea that playoffs are probably going to expand even further. And I don't know how that's going to work because the season's already too long. They need to get rid of the conference championship game or something. But that's the word that they're telling teams, and that doesn't really affect Texas because Texas is traditionally, at least in the last half dozen years, scheduled tough non-conference games. But that's something to look for. Expect it to go to 9 games in 2026.
You and I have been poring over SEC bylaws. We've been poring over the SEC commissioners' regulations, trying to figure, what the voting process looks like, whether it just needs 8, whether it needs 12, that type of thing. It will be a vote. We do know that Greg Sankey usually likes unanimity. Remember, every team voted to invite Texas and Oklahoma. Even despite some protests from College Station, they still got in line. So Sankey likes having a unanimous vote and a united front. We'll see if that happens with this one, because like you mentioned, if you're Vanderbilt, you like playing, Georgia Southern and sneaking a win over Virginia Tech, but playing 2, lesser teams to maybe help you get halfway or further to bowl eligibility. Texas, it doesn't work that way. I also remember looking, there's a current requirement, I think, for SEC teams to play 1 Power 5 opponent on their schedule or Power 4 opponent. You can go either direction. Texas has had Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame and Arizona State on the schedule even before they went to the SEC. Georgia and Florida were supposed to be on the docket, Alabama, obviously. Or you can go the, not to fully name names, but there's no other option. Ole Miss played Wake Forest, and no disrespect to the Demon Deacons, but Ole Miss is going to beat Wake Forest most of the time. So we'll see what comes of that 9th game, what comes of SoCon Saturday. Tough luck for all the teams that like getting a tune-up game before their rivalry week. Anything else on football, or are you ready to switch it over to the hardwood real quick?
Well, if we're talking basketball, that it's going to be a coaching search, because that's about all I ever know when it comes to Texas basketball. We talked about Rodney Terry.
Yeah, at this point, Texas is they're welcoming Kentucky, yet another ranked team from the competitive Southeastern Conference. But Texas has not been a big reason why that conference has been competitive. 15-10, I believe 4-8 in conference play. Not eliminated from the NCAA tournament contention yet. Very much on the bubble, very much in contention to be, team 65 through 68 in Dayton. In or out, what does the future look like for Rodney Terry?
Yeah, well, I think first that fans should have high expectations for Texas basketball. I don't think that they can, people can no longer say, well, it's more of a football school. Look at the football schools right now. We just left Nashville having a conference with On3, and you got Alabama and Auburn guys sitting there talking about being 1 and 2. Tennessee's a football school. So that's kind of old thinking to me. So I think the standards should be high. But at the same time, you can't make a move unless you're confident on it. And right now, I don't think that Del Conte is confident on making a move, whether that's because he believes that Rodney Terry can still pull things out and have a quality third season, or that there's just no candidate that he likes. Right now, I would bet money that Rodney Terry is back. But, it would be – he's definitely back if they make the tournament. It's a little bit more precarious after that. But right now, I think most likely it's Rodney Terry will be back for a third season. And I think a lot of that is attributed not to whether or not Texas is complacent with having an iffy basketball program. Well, I don't think that's the case. They did a lot to get Chris Beard. They've invested NIL in getting some of the top players. But I'm not sure that they feel great about potential replacements at this time. And so, I think they also probably feel it's a little fair to give Rodney Terry 3 years. 2 years is not a lot of time, although in basketball you can turn things around a lot quicker than in football.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, names that would make sense off the top of my head, and none just come to mind. Like, it was so easy when we were thinking about Chris Beard back in 2021. There's no one.
That plays a part in it. Now, they've compiled a list, NBA guys, college guys, that's, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. But I don't think there's a no doubter out there to their mind. So, it's another year will provide more clarity. It's a little upsetting for fans to hear, but that's what's happening behind the scenes.
I think Texas has a chance to be the big fish in the market if they kind of follow the path that you're thinking of, because Indiana is opening up, and that's a school that's going to provide a lot more dedication to basketball. You would think. I mean, Texas may be able to up itself to that level, but I think there is some value in making sure that you are the big fish in a search in a given cycle.
Yeah, well, I guess there's a lot of talk that there's going to be a lot of turnover on the carousel this year, and that could definitely dilute Texas's options. I don't follow it as closely as football. We know that there's certain football cycles, it's a lot harder to have a hiring process than others. This was a good year to hire football coaches because there wasn't nearly as much turnover. You're like 2022 when there's guys going everywhere. It's a little bit more difficult. But I think it's just a good life lesson. If you're not confident on the decision, then don't make it.
Speaking of, next year's football carousel should be pretty fun. Can't wait to get there. So, but we got some time. We got an off season to talk about. We've got opening day for the Horns baseball program and so much more. So make sure you head to InsideTexas.com, sign up. The promotion right now, I think you get $1 per week for your first year. So head to InsideTexas.com. And of course, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. We'll be bringing it tomorrow. We'll be back Monday with our regular schedule. We'll be bringing it all off season. So Eric, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel, powered by InsideTexas.com.